There's an old saying, and it goes something like this: the proof is in the pudding. So, as it relates to the 2020 chaos, what do I mean by that? Well, let's take a look. Well, the saying, the proof is in the pudding, basically comes down to when the pudding is done and you eat it, you know what the result is of that preparation. It's proof of whether you got it right or got it wrong. And so that is certainly the case with some of these conspiracies. Now, I'll go on the record to say, I created this channel to open people's eyes to certain things, but we have to call a spade a spade. And the proof is in the pudding when it comes to a lot of these predictions. It reminds me of a lot of these false predictions of Christ coming back. If you recall, in the 70s, 80s, 90s, at the height of the Left Behind series and Tim LaHaye, and everything was all, it's going to happen on this date. Of course, when that date came and went, there was never any mea culpa on the part of those that predicted it. They just simply made an excuse and pushed it, kicked the can down the road and pushed the date up further. Of course, Scripture tells us clearly that no man knoweth the return of the Son of God except the Father, So there's that. But I want to just talk about some of these connected conspiracies to the COVID, the COVID anti-narrative, and how the proof is in the pudding on their predictions. And there's one that comes to mind immediately, and that is Ice Age Farmer on YouTube. Now, I'm sure he has, good intentions, but he, for over 1 year, since the beginning of this thing, has predicted famine in the United States, food shortages due to farms collapsing. All the meat was going to go away and was going to we were all going to be forced to eat soy because of Bill Gates buying up all the farms. Has there been a meat shortage in the United States? No. Has his predictions proven to be completely and totally false every step of the way and not getting one thing right so far? Yes. Now, when you have that element of this whole COVID thing, counter-narrative, and the tentacles of it, the things connected to it to be false, you can be pretty confident that the core of the narrative is also false, because you don't get good fruit from a bad tree. It's a principle in Scripture. It's common sense. And that is, of course, just one of the many narratives that have proven to be completely false. There is another one floating around out there too. Yeah, and the other one was going to be that we were going to have a fake alien invasion. Yeah, and this would be demons, and they would appear as real, but they weren't going to be real. They were going to be fake. They're going to be demonic entities that the government is hiding proof of these until they're ready to release them. See, of course, where is the proof of this? Nowhere. So the point I'm trying to make here, and I don't know any name of any particular channel that traffics in this, but it's been floating around out there quite a bit. And then you have these basically quacks that I've talked about previously. Dr. Tenpenny, Carrie Madej. Just the other day, somebody sent me a video of a panel of rabbinical doctors, Jewish doctors, in full rabbinical garb, saying that this whole thing was a death jab. And look, there's also people that have pointed to the VAERS, the Vaccine Injury website, and have tried to make hay out of those numbers, which are infinitesimal. I've heard some people assert on Facebook about that there's tens of thousands of deaths. First of all, if there were tens of thousands of deaths, like 100,000 plus, like some assert, nobody would be able to get a funeral. The funeral homes would be booked solid. And so that is not the case. Therefore, that is just not true. I mean, it's impossible. It cannot be true. You see, because that many deaths would be obvious. It would have obvious consequences in our society. So these are the kind of clues that we should be looking for to determine whether something is quackery or something that we should pay attention to. Now, I'm all for having an open mind. I mean, this channel is called Open Their Eyes. But we only should open our eyes to truth and verifiable truth, not connecting dots that are miles apart. It's nonsensical, it's non-Christian, and it's unethical and immoral, because we are steering people away from possible life-saving means. So we're not, at some point, Christians have to trust the institutions. Scripture tells us this, that we ought to be good citizens, we ought to pray for our government. The Scripture doesn't give anti-government sentiment. It's not there. You see, it's not there. Yet these individuals want to promote this BS and call it Christian simply because some politicians or even non-politicians, are quacking about this. I mean, this thing is now in the mainstream, this poison. Fox News is directly promoting it, guys. This is not just in the bowels of the internet anymore, because it's maintained it's had a snowball effect. More people believe this. That's why so many haven't gotten vaxxed. And so the mainstream has grabbed a hold of it, is going to promote it more because it's division. You see? That's what this whole thing is about, is division and eventually tyranny, in my view. Now, of course, you could say, well, open your eyes. You don't have proof that there's a plot about tyranny. Well, I mean, this isn't an anti-government statement. It's simply a historical fact that governments do trend towards tyranny over time. And the New World Order is certainly for doing that. That's been their track record. So we look at track records as a likelihood for future outcomes or future actions. We do that with criminals. That's why they lock up criminals until they can have a trial, because they've had a past. And they're looked at with more suspicion, you see. So the same thing applies to these fake predictors on the internet. There's also things floating around about that we're going to have martial law when Trump was in office. And these people were asserting, it's happening this week, it's happening this month, it's happening here, get ready, it's happening now. And what's happened? Nothing. This is what I'm saying. Don't follow these guys, please. None of these things have happened, and their excuse is just, they're going to kick it down the road. It's going to happen soon. None of these things have happened. Their track record is horrible. They have had no successes on what they've said so far. So what are the chances that what they're going to say in the future are going to have any successes? Zero. This is why this whole counter-narrative that's been created, and yes, I think it was deliberately created. So that's a conspiracy, sure. But it's been predicted. I mean, it's predictable, because when you put one group totally opposed to another, and you hype this narrative up, just like the racist narrative they've been pushing for decades. They just keep adding fuel to it. It's the same concept. So guys, I have nothing to do with these fables. Scripture tells us about that. As Christians, we really got to be smarter than that, and got to rise above it. And we're good citizens of this world. We're just here. We're not owners of it. We don't have any stake in these outcomes, to the point where we're going to force, vilify, coerce, and spread bad information that has been proven to be bad information. See, you go by track record so far in a year and a half of this COVID. So again, that's how you measure what's true. What has the track record been for these guys, right? Like I said in my previous videos, they did the switcheroo. The propaganda is no longer in the mainstream predominantly. Now, that is changing again, because they want to get more people hyped up to be against the vax. So this is bled into Fox News now. You see, you look at these trends and you've got to ask yourself, why? Because it's the same thing as the Capitol riots. And although this is worldwide, it's the same principle. To get people ginned up, left versus right paradigm, freedom versus tyranny, and a counter-narrative in order to create a crisis that they're going to swoop in and solve with severe lockdowns. That's where we're headed. So jump off of this crazy bandwagon, come back down to earth, be a quiet, useful citizen, and forget these lies, please, because this is very dangerous. I mean, I'm here in Florida, and people have been soundly criticized for sounding the alarm about how bad COVID is. Well, these hospitals, I can attest to you, are full. Patients are in the hallways. People that I know and their friends and family have died. Healthy, young people. This is real. This is not a hoax. So really you need to stop it, because it's become so dangerous now that it's almost to the point of absurdity. And think about your kids. Think about what will you tell them in the future, and your grandkids, when this all happened, and in the history books are open, and you were on the wrong side of history. What are you going to tell them? That you were believing fables? I don't think you want that. So, again, track record is a perfect way of figuring out what somebody's future predictions are going to be about and whether they should be followed. All right, so like, share, and subscribe. Thanks for joining me once again, and we'll see you in the next video. Ciao.